Have you ever found yourself just completely livid over something tiny? Like someone bumps into you on the train or grabs the last parking spot, and you just see red? It feels totally irrational, right? But the reason you're so angry goes way, way deeper than the incident itself. Okay, let's get into it and unpack the psychology behind why this happens. I think this quote really sets the perfect tone for what we're talking about. Look, the goal isn't to just eliminate anger from your life. It's about understanding the rocks in our path, those little things that trigger us, and figuring out how to navigate around them. So yeah, this is the big question, isn't it? It's something pretty much all of us have felt, a small, everyday frustration that just sets off this massive emotional reaction. And it's so frustrating when you don't even know why it's happening to you. Now, you might be thinking it's simple. You just feel like you don't have enough. Not enough space, not enough respect, whatever it is. But that's really only one piece of the puzzle. The real answer is more like a cocktail of three different but connected psychological factors, and we're going to break them down right now. Yep, it all comes down to three core reasons, and just understanding what they are is the first most important step to getting a handle on those sudden flashes of anger. Let's jump into the first one. Okay, so the foundation of this whole issue is a deep inner sense of lack. The best way to think about it is like you're carrying around an emotional magnifying glass. It doesn't create the problem, but boy, does it make every little bump and annoyance feel absolutely enormous. This brings us to a really key idea in psychology, the scarcity mindset. When you fundamentally believe there isn't enough to go around, you're constantly on the defensive. And we're not just talking about money here. This can be about time, energy, or, you guessed it, personal space on a crowded subway. So when you're operating from that place of scarcity, anger stops being just an emotion. It actually becomes a tool. It's your brain's knee-jerk reaction to shout, "Hey, back off. I can't afford to lose this tiny bit of comfort I have left." It's a pure defense mechanism. All right, let's move on to the second factor, because this is where it all starts to build. This is the trigger, the gap between the life you imagine for yourself and the one you're actually living right now. Just think about it for a second. There's your ideal self, the version of you that's successful, calm, maybe driving a nice car to work. And then there's your real self, the one who's actually just stuck on a jam-packed train. That gap between your expectation and your reality, it creates this constant low-level friction. And that's where the anger really comes from. See, you're not really mad at the person who bumped you. You're mad that you're in that situation in the first place. The anger is just misplaced anxiety about not being where you feel you should be in life. And that person who bumped you, they just became a very convenient target. And all of this leads us right into our third and final factor, the issue of fragile personal boundaries, which of course gets totally amplified by everything we've just talked about. You know, when you're feeling that scarcity and you're frustrated by that expectation gap, your personal boundaries can become paper thin. A simple, accidental bump no longer feels accidental. It feels like an invasion, a sign of disrespect. Someone taking a seat feels like they're actively taking something from you. Every minor thing gets blown up into a major personal offense. Okay, so we've laid out the problem. We understand the three big factors at play. But what can we actually do about it? Well, the good news is that change can start with just a couple of really practical mental shifts. We're going to focus on two powerful first steps. First, learning to separate the cold, hard facts of what happened from your emotional story about it. And second, shifting your focus away from some big future goal and onto the small wins you can find in the here and now. This right here is the absolute core of it. The fact is neutral. Someone bumped into me. That's it. But the interpretation? That's where all the emotion gets piled on. They did it on purpose to disrespect me. Learning to see that gap, that difference, is the key to breaking the whole cycle. The real magic happens in the pause, that moment before you react. If you can, just take a breath and consciously choose a different, more neutral story. So instead of, "they're disrespecting me," maybe you try, "oh, maybe they just lost their balance." Or even just, "it's really crowded." This simple little act puts you back in control. Now, for that second step, this is about retraining your brain. So instead of constantly telling yourself, "I'll be happy when I get the promotion," or "when I can afford a car," you start training your brain to find a richness in the present moment. It's about shifting from waiting for that big outcome to appreciating the small things in the process. And this doesn't have to be some huge, complicated thing. An abundance signal can be as simple as finally getting a seat on the train, or your favorite song coming on your headphones, or even just a brief moment of quiet in the middle of your commute. These small signals train your brain to see the good that's already there, and that's how you fight back against that scarcity mindset. So, we circle all the way back to where we started. The goal isn't a life with no problems, a stream with no rocks. That's impossible. It's about learning to navigate them with a little more grace, a little more understanding. So the question to leave you with is this: what's one small way you can practice this today?